I woke up to the sound of my daughter's voice cutting through the hum of hospital machines. "Don't waste resources on him. He's done." The words slid through the room like a knife dipped in ice. I didn't move, didn't speak, just listened. She thought I was too weak to hear, too far gone to care. But I heard every word. I felt every ounce of what she truly meant. That I was no longer worth saving. That my life, the same one I built to give her everything, was now a burden. I kept my eyes closed and let her talk, her voice steady, cold, practical. The doctor hesitated, but she insisted. "He's old. There's no point." My hands trembled under the blanket, not from pain, but from something deeper, a kind of death that comes before the last breath. I wanted to ask why, but I didn't. I stayed silent, because silence can be sharper than any answer. And in that silence, I made a promise to myself. The next time she heard my voice, she would understand what it feels like to be finished, just not in the way she expected. Hello there, my friend. It's Grandpa here, and if you're listening, thank you for giving me a bit of your time today. I've got a story that still aches when I think about it, but it taught me something powerful about silence, respect, and the kind of love that doesn't fade when life gets hard. Maybe you've been through something like it, maybe not, but either way, I hope you'll stay and listen till the end. Tell me in the comments, has anyone ever dismissed you because of your age, as if your worth had an expiration date? I read your words, I really do, because stories like ours deserve to be heard. My daughter's name is Melissa. To everyone else, she's the perfect woman, successful, confident, devoted to her family. Neighbors praise her for taking such good care of her old man. They see her car parked outside my house once a week and call her an angel. But angels don't talk about you like you're an expense. My wife, God rest her soul, would have seen through her act in a second. She used to tell me, "Be careful, love can turn into entitlement if you're not watching." Melissa's husband Tom follows her lead. Polite smile, firm handshake, empty eyes. My friends think I'm lucky to have them close. They don't know how quiet it feels when people pretend to love you just enough to inherit what's yours. Behind the smiles, behind the Sunday visits, there's a ledger in her mind. How much I've given, how much I have left, how soon she can claim it. On the outside, we look like a family. But inside, it's all transactions and waiting. When I was a younger man, everything I did was for her. Every shift at the factory, every dollar saved, every night I came home smelling like metal and oil. It was all so Melissa could have a better life. I built our house myself, brick by brick, with hands that bled more than once but never trembled. That house was my pride. It stood on the same piece of land my father left me, land that had seen generations of our family work, love, and die with dignity. Inside that house, in the study, sits an old oak desk. It was my wife's favorite spot. We kept our will there, our papers, and a single family photograph. The three of us smiling in front of the porch one summer afternoon. I remember that day clearly. My wife had made lemonade, and Melissa was still small enough to fit on my shoulders. She had wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "Daddy, I'll take care of you forever." Those words used to fill me with warmth. Now they echo in my head like a cruel joke. The same house that once symbolized sacrifice and love now feels like a museum of broken promises. Every wall, every floorboard holds proof of what I gave and what she forgot. It started small, like most betrayals do. One afternoon, she brought Tom over to help move some things in the garage. I was sitting on the porch, watching them, when I heard her laugh and say, "We'll clear this old stuff out once he's gone. It's just taking space." She said it so casually, as if I wasn't even there, as if I were already a memory. Tom chuckled and nodded, eyes on the tools I'd used for decades. My chest tightened, but I kept still, pretending not to hear. Inside, something cracked. Every screw, every hammer, every dented box in that garage held pieces of my life. They weren't clutter, they were proof that I had built something from nothing. But I said nothing. I just smiled weakly when she looked my way. Because I've learned that words said in anger fade fast. But silence echoes. And that day, her words found their place in me, like rust on steel, quiet but permanent. The weeks that followed turned my home into a stage where love only existed when someone else was watching. At dinner one evening, Melissa sat across from me, scrolling through her phone while I tried to tell her about a memory from her childhood. She didn't look up. She just muttered, "Dad, maybe it's time you stop living in the past." Tom laughed under his breath. I felt the words like stones pressing against my chest. A few days later, she came by with a real estate agent, pretending it was just a friendly visit. They walked through my house, whispering numbers and potential buyers, as if my years here were nothing more than square footage. When I asked what was going on, she smiled, that polite practice smile, and said, "Just exploring options for when the time comes." The time. My time. The words hung there, heavy and cold. Then came the day I found my checkbook missing. She had taken it to help pay a few bills. When I asked about it, she looked at me like a child scolded unfairly. "Dad, I'm just trying to keep things organized," she said. But I could see it now, the way she measured every interaction in gain and loss. The daughter I had raised to be kind now saw me as an obstacle. I didn't show anger. I let her think she had me fooled, because I knew something she didn't. I was done giving everything away, and my silence was starting to work in my favor. It started with little things, the kind of details most people would miss. One morning, I noticed my mail had been opened before it reached me. Bank statements, insurance letters, everything came already torn at the edges. When I asked Melissa about it, she smiled too quickly, too smoothly, and said she was just trying to keep track of things. Later that week, the lawyer's office called to confirm a meeting I supposedly scheduled. I hadn't made any appointment. My heart sank. Someone was pretending to handle my affairs. I checked my drawer where I kept my old documents, the deed to the house, my wife's jewelry appraisal, the life insurance papers. A few pages were missing. My name looked smudged in places, as if someone had copied it. That night, I heard whispers in the hallway outside my room, Tom's voice low and sharp. "If we move fast, we can have everything squared away before you know." Then Melissa's reply, hushed but clear enough, "He won't even notice. He's getting worse." I stayed still, every muscle stiff, pretending to sleep again. The second time, pretending never hurt less than the first. But this time, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. They were planning something, and I wasn't as weak as they thought. There was still enough strength left in me to protect what mattered. Somewhere deep inside, I knew the day was coming when they'd see exactly how alert I really was. The proof came to me almost by accident. One quiet morning, I was sorting through a pile of mail Melissa had left on the counter. Among the envelopes was a thin white one addressed to my lawyer, half open. My name wasn't on it, but curiosity, or maybe instinct, made me look closer. Inside was a draft document typed neatly with my forged signature at the bottom. It was a power of attorney, transferring control of my estate to Melissa for medical reasons. My stomach turned. Every suspicion I'd tried to bury came alive in that moment. I sat there staring at the paper, my hand trembling but my mind sharp and clear. Later that day, when she came by and smiled like everything was fine, I simply nodded and asked if she'd remembered to bring me my reading glasses. She didn't notice the small recorder sitting on the bookshelf, already running. As she spoke to Tom on the phone in the kitchen, I heard her say it again. Cold, decisive, certain. "Once it's signed, it's all settled. He won't even know." That was the moment I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. I turned off the recorder, folded the forged document, and tucked it behind my wife's photograph on the mantel. I didn't confront her. I didn't rage or curse. I just waited. Because sometimes, silence doesn't mean defeat. It means you're building something she'll never see coming. Now tell me, my friend, what would you have done if you found that document sitting in your own hands? Would you have shouted, called them out right there, demanded to know how long they'd been planning it? Or would you have stayed silent, like I did, letting the truth hang in the air until the right moment to strike? I wonder sometimes if silence is a strength or a curse. Tell me in the comments, would you have kept quiet? Or would you have made them face you on the spot? It happened the following Sunday at dinner. Melissa invited a few relatives, called it a family catch-up, but it felt more like a performance. The table was full. Laughter, plates clinking, the smell of roast chicken. But underneath it all, something sharp lingered. Halfway through the meal, she cleared her throat and said, "Dad, we've been thinking. Maybe it's time you moved somewhere easier to manage. There's a lovely assisted living place near us. You'd be comfortable there." Tom nodded in agreement, pretending concern. "It's for your safety," he said, cutting into his food like the matter was settled. I looked around the table, everyone quiet, waiting for me to react. My fork hovered in midair. Inside, my heart burned, but my face stayed calm. I took a slow sip of water, then said, "Sounds like you've already made up your mind." She smiled, all sweetness and deceit. "We just want what's best for you." I nodded once and said softly, "I'm sure you do." And that was it. No argument, no outburst, just silence. But as I looked at her across that table, I saw something she didn't. Her reflection in the window behind her, smiling like a stranger I didn't recognize. I knew right then the time for silence was nearly over. A few days later, Melissa stopped by again, carrying that same false cheer she wore like perfume. She talked about finances, bills, and preparing for the future, never noticing that I was studying her every move. As she reached for the sugar bowl, I said quietly, "I met with my lawyer last week." Her hand froze midair just for a second. "Oh," she said, forcing a laugh. "About what?" I smiled. "Just some updates. I realized I'd forgotten to include a few important details in my papers, things that could change how certain assets are handled." Her smile faltered. "What kind of details?" she asked, voice tight. I shrugged. "You'll see soon enough. I wanted to make sure everything was clear before anyone made assumptions." She laughed again, but it sounded hollow. I could see her trying to read my face, trying to guess how much I knew. I said nothing else, just stirred my tea slowly, the spoon clinking softly against the cup. The way her eyes darted toward the study told me she was rattled. Good. Let her wonder. Let her feel the first tremor of the storm she thought she controlled. The storm finally came on a quiet Friday morning. Melissa showed up unannounced, holding a folder and her fake smile. "Dad, I just need you to sign a few papers for the insurance," she said, trying to sound casual. I nodded toward the living room. "Let's sit." I handed her a sealed envelope across the table. "Before I sign anything, maybe you should read this first." She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a letter from my lawyer, stamped and official, attached to a copy of my new will. Her eyes darted over the lines, her face draining of color. You changed everything?" I nodded once. "I did." She scanned the page again, her voice cracking. "You left it all? To them? The hospice? The community fund? You gave everything away?" I looked straight at her. "Not everything. I kept my peace. That's worth more than money." Her hand shook. "You can't do this," she said, almost whispering. I leaned back and played the recording from my shelf, the one of her voice saying, "Once it's signed, it's all settled. He won't even know." The sound filled the room like thunder. Her face went pale, eyes wide, mouth open, but no words coming out. I stopped the recording halfway. "I knew long before the hospital. You just confirmed what I already felt." She tried to speak, but all that came out was a broken sound, a mixture of guilt, anger, and shame. Her own greed had finally swallowed her whole. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The truth had already done what I never could. The room fell into a silence so heavy it felt like time had stopped. Melissa's hands trembled as she set the papers down, her eyes darting between me and the recorder as if either might give her a way out. Tom stood by the door, face pale, jaw tight, pretending he had no part in it, though guilt was written all over him. I didn't move. I just sat there, watching them both, letting the truth sit between us like a mirror they couldn't look away from. "Dad, please," she finally whispered, voice small, cracked. I didn't mean. I raised a hand slightly, not in anger, just to stop her. "You meant every word, Melissa. I heard you. I forgave you a long time ago, but forgiveness doesn't rebuild trust. And trust, that's something you sold for a price." She looked down, tears spilling, but there was no comfort left to give. The air felt cleaner somehow, clearer, as if the walls themselves were relieved the lies had finally broken. I stood slowly, steady despite the years, and said, "I'm not your burden. I'm your lesson." Then I turned toward the window, sunlight touching my face, warm and final. No shouting, no revenge, just truth, and the quiet justice that comes when a man chooses his dignity over noise. Life has a way of testing what we teach. I spent years believing love was enough to keep a family honest, but I learned that respect is what truly holds it together. You can give everything to someone, your time, your work, your heart, but if they stop seeing your worth, it's not love that's missing, it's gratitude. I don't hate my daughter, not even after what she did. But I do pity her, because greed blinds faster than age ever could. In the end, silence became my shield, truth my weapon, and peace my reward. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you live in a way that demands it, even from those who've forgotten how. Thank you for staying with me till the end, my friend. Stories like this aren't easy to tell, but if you're still here listening, it means you understand what it feels like to be underestimated and still stand tall. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved and had to choose between anger and peace? I read your words, every one of them, and they remind me that none of us are truly alone in what we've faced. If this story touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to remember their worth. And don't forget to subscribe for more true lessons from an old man's heart. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, stay blessed.